Welcome to Scrapbook My Life, where I'm going to tell you a story about how an unlikely elf helped to get Lucky out of a bind and made for a memorable Christmas pageant. It was almost winter break, which meant the big Christmas pageant was only a week away, and this year, Lucky was directing it. At first, Lucky thought this would be her dream job, but as the pageant started to get closer, she started to get a little bit stressed. She'd never been nervous about Christmas before. That day after school, Lucky was getting ready to ride home with Pru. Sure, she was done with pageant stuff for the day. But then, Maricela and Abigail rode up. They asked if Lucky had cast the role of head elf yet. Lucky shook her head. Pru was going to be Santa and Javier was going to be a reindeer, but she hadn't thought about who was going to play the head elf. Abigail and Maricela told Lucky they both wanted to be the head elf. Lucky wasn't sure what to do. How could she possibly choose between them? Then she remembered what her dad always said. Talking it out is the best way to solve any problem. So Lucky invited Maricela, Pru, and Abigail to her house to have lunch and discuss the whole elf situation. Maybe then she'd know what to do. They all rode their horses towards Lucky's house. Everybody was talking and laughing the whole way, which made Lucky pretty sure her talking it out idea was going to be a success. She couldn't help but be proud of her quick problem solving. Until they got to her house. As soon as they walked inside, Maricela said, "What's that weird smell?" Something smelled weird and bad. It was not quite barn smell and not quite horse smell, but definitely some kind of animal smell. They all walked into the dining room, and there, sitting right at the head of the table, was a full-grown goose. "Oh, don't worry, it's just Clancy," said Aunt Cora while she served the goose a sandwich. "Your father brought him home to be Christmas dinner, but I just think he's the cutest," continued Aunt Cora. Then Maricela burst out laughing. It turns out Lucky's friends all thought Clancy was pretty cute too. But they still had to figure out the elf situation. They all sat down around the dining room table with Clancy. Maricela and Abigail both made their cases about why they wanted to be the elf. Now Lucky was even more lost about what to do. Both her friends would make great elves. Spirit must have known something was up because just then, Spirit stuck his head through the dining room window. He shook his head and let out a big neigh, knocking his head right into the Christmas tree and Lucky's favorite ornament. The elf hat ornament swung on its branch like it was holding on for dear life. Then, almost in slow motion, it fell off the tree. Lucky rushed to grab the ornament before it hit the floor, but it didn't hit the floor. Instead, it landed right on Clancy's head. Pru laughed and pointed out that the elf hat actually looked pretty good on Clancy. Oh boy, now the goose wants to be the elf too, thought Lucky. But then, as Lucky was hanging the ornament back up, she got an idea. Santa only has one head elf, but nobody said the head elf couldn't have assistants. Clancy the goose would play the head elf, and Abigail and Maricela would play the elf's assistants. They'd split up the lines and speak for Clancy because, geese can't talk. That way, everybody would get to play the elf, and Lucky wouldn't have to choose between her friends. Abigail and Maricela loved that idea. And Clancy went down in history as the best elf the school had ever had. Sometimes the best solution to a problem is one you totally didn't see coming at all. And sometimes, that solution involves a goose.